I'm Larry Baxt, founder of OperGermany, and now we're talking with Mike Pegher, who also had a 14-year long career in Germany as a singer and comes from the States and is back there now. So it's a fascinating story, and we want
Full
to
circle.
talk about your development just real quick. You know, studying violin and learning to read music, a real musician. And going to university and stuff like that. Tell us about that.
So you want the quick and dirty recap of my
You bet.
life as a musician.
Absolutely.
Great. Uh, so I love to tell this part. I told it we talked about it off screen, but we I asked when I was young my parents for either violin lessons or bagpipe lessons, and thank the Lord in heaven they chose violin lessons. I don't know where the hell I would be. I might be on some mountain in Scotland right now bagpiping away to the sheep if they had chosen the bagpipes. Sometimes I think to myself, holy crap, how different would my life had been had my mother had said, that's an interesting choice, let's get him bagpipe lessons. So she didn't, and that led me to taking violin lessons, which led me to studying classical music seriously and wanting to go and try to become a violinist, but I couldn't really because I kind of sucked. No, I was okay as a violinist. I was fine, but it wasn't really what I was supposed to play. But it gave me a deep appreciation from music, and also gave me musicianship. I studied Suzuki, the Suzuki method, which really, really grains into your head uh, uh, sight reading skills and musicianship, and actually gives you. I know a lot of people who studied Suzuki that have perfect pitch, and I'm kind of one of them. I constantly have in my head EADG, and you find any pitch from there. It's one of those interesting things. People think all the time that you're either born with perfect pitch or you're not, and I'm firmly on the side that you can have a propensity for learning it, meaning you're better at it than others, but it is something that can be learned. And there's a great book called Your Brain on Music, which, honest to God, if you're interested in music at all, you need to read this book. It is so interesting. You find out so many things about the way your brain works and how music is so deeply intertwined. And he talked about in that book um, about how if you ask a random person on the street to sing their favorite song, something like 8 times out of 10 they're going to start in the right key. Why? Because they've listened to it so many times that they know that that tonic is the pitch that they're supposed to sing, which means if they know the name of it, then they already kind of are on their way to doing it. So, long story short, I studied Suzuki violin, and then eventually made my way to singing through choir festivals.
Right, and solos in choir festivals. And
That's
then
right.
then then after high school, you went to the CCM, to the Cincinnati Conservatory of Music.
That's right. There
And
was a guy. There was a guy in Pittsburgh named Lorenzo Malfatti, which a lot of people know. Who a lot of people know him because he was a famous teacher that people loved. He was one of those people that really made you love music as much as he did. His enthusiasm was awesome, and through him, I ended up going to CCM, and he was a professor there for a long time.
he was well known. I mean, I knew him,
Yeah.
and everybody knew about him. So tell us about um, the the American way as you experienced it, and what it gave you and what it didn't give you.
So CCM's an awesome school. Of course, everybody knows. I mean, the quality of teaching there is very, very high. The quality of singing there, the people that they attract, is very, very high. But it almost made me quit. The
Really?
reason I almost quit was because, well, first off, it's hard. If you're gonna sing, you have to practice all the time, and at the beginning, you suck because you're just not. You have to work your way through all the different technical things that you have to do as an opera singer. But I also had the particular trouble because there's a certain sort of voice that the American system looks for. And it's not anybody's fault or anything, but my voice has a particular character, which is particularly suited for something like a character tenor voice or a Spieltenor. Schools need to be successful. And for them to be successful, they have to have successful students. And for students in the American system to really be successful, you've got to find the right young artist program, and you've got to succeed at that. You've got to find the right competitions. You got to succeed at those. And you've got to then go on and have start some sort of career in America, which without those, I mean, there are very few cases of people who start a career in America that don't have big young artist programs and don't have big competitions on their resume. But you can't go into a competition singing the standard wonderful repertoire of character tenors or Spieltenor. You can't go in singing Frisch zum Kampfe. You can't go in singing Mime. You can't go in singing like from Comte Hoffmann, like jour et nuit, je me. It just doesn't. That's not what they're looking for. That's not a splashy competition piece. If you're going up against singing somebody singing a Mes Amis, and you're going out there like inhabiting this wonderful little character and giving your all to it, people are going to think, what the hell am I listening to? And maybe rightfully so. But for somebody who is clearly fit for that sort of repertoire, it's easy to be overlooked. Now, I don't want to give CCM a bad name because they did in their way steer me towards that, because when they were casting things, I never did any of the main role things. I ended up having these tiny little roles, and the people there were supportive of me. Any of the teachers, when they would see me, when they would hear me sing something like Dalla sua pace or something, they'd be like, okay. But if they saw me do something goofy, where I could inhabit a character, and it was really about the actual character, and I was able to play with colors of my voice and stuff like that, they would say, hey, I like that a lot, Mike. One of the problems was, though, that nobody really, except for maybe Sandra Bernhardt, the head of the opera department, nobody really said, hey, Mike, that's the path, right? That should be the path.
They don't even recognize it. They don't recognize it as a path. They're just not particularly familiar with it, is my impression.
Well, because in American opera companies, they have these young artist programs where they'll do these operas. They have these operas that have these smaller roles, but a lot of them are just the lyric tenor that is not singing Rodolfo. So you give him this role, or you give him that role that normally would be a specialized Spieltenor role. So they'll give him that, and it doesn't matter as long as he doesn't screw up vocally. It's not that big of a deal, and if he really gives a crap about that, it seems. That being said, if you get into the bigger ones like Mime, or what's this called? What's his name? Pedrillo from.
Pedrillo. Or in Salome, which they don't do. They do it somewhat here, but in Salome, if you can't
the Jew quintet, the Jewish quintet. So that is one of my. It is one of my favorite things that I ever did.
And it's fabulous music, and to find somebody who can really sing, especially the high tenor, is just
That's right. You could wake me up in the middle of the night. And I would be, das kann nicht sein, seit dem Propheten Elias hat niemand Gott gesehen. I know every bit of it. And that's the thing. If you have somebody, if you go into a role like that, now we're getting ahead of ourselves, but if you go into a role like that and you see yourself as, and again, we'll talk about this in a bit, but if you see yourself, if your attitude is, well, this isn't the role, this isn't the kind of role I'm going to sing, this is just something I have to do in the meantime, it's not going to be interesting to you. You're not going to recognize that bit of music is one of the most insane 2 minutes of music ever written.
Right.
It's absolutely brilliant. And if you're looking at it as, oh, I have to sing this so I can sing something later, then it's lost on you. And
Right.
that's kind of my point, is that the American system doesn't really lend itself to realizing you can make a career at that, just
Right.
at that.
Well, now, how did you? So you went to the to Miami of Ohio, and tell us about that,
After,
and
yeah.
then tell us about getting to you going to Europe and having to pay to sing, but going to Europe and that really guiding you into it.
That's right. That's right. So after my time at CCM, I went to the University of Miami, or Miami University, sorry, Miami University, which is just north of Cincinnati, because I met somebody there, Ben Smolder, who's I think he's head of the opera department now. He's awesome. He's the sort of person who's like, let's see, how can I help you be successful as a singer? Because that's what we all want to do if we're studying, of course, right? So I went there and I was able to really spread my wings. I mean, because it was a smaller program at CCM, at a huge program like CCM, if you're interested in conducting, you have zero chance of conducting if you're a voice major. Why? Because there are doctoral students, there are graduate assistants, there are all these people who are there for that purpose. But at a smaller program, I was able to be the assistant conductor for two different choirs. I was able to assist and conduct the one second. I was able to assist and conduct the musical, and I conducted performances there. I was able to have my own voice studio, all things that I never would have gotten at a bigger program. So I chose that. I was able to get my voice in line. I was able to do another goofy opera called Les Mamelles de Tiresias, which, if you are ever in charge of planning something, for the love of baby Jesus Christ, listen to me and schedule Les Mamelles by Poulenc, which, by the way, also never say Poulenc. That's wrong. Poulenc, right? So say his name correctly and do Les Mamelles de Tiresias, because it's the craziest, goofiest, most awesome opera ever. It's small and it's an ensemble thing. So if you are in a university or you have some kind of an ensemble, do it. That's the end of that. Anyway, I did that, which again affirmed, hey, I can, like, this is a cool thing that I like being goofy. I like taking risks and taking the risk of looking goofy on stage, So I did that there. And then I ended up doing two pay to sings, which, again, there's also kind of a stigma with pay to sings among students who are studying. Most of them were like, well, what young artist program am I going to do this summer? Which is fine. Do a young artist program. It's about learning. It's not about anything else. At that age, you should really be finding the right experiences for yourself. And for me, when I did the Luca program that was
You
attached
went,
to
just
CCM,
so everybody knows, you went over to Europe and paid to sing, and that was
right?
a eye-opening experience in a lot of ways.
Exactly. So I did the pay to sing for Luca, which I sang Alcindoro in La Boheme, which is normally a bass part, but there's actually no tradition of character tenors singing it, especially at the Met. Like, if you listen to the older recordings at the Met, they don't sing Benoit, because Benoit sits lower than Alcindoro. But if you're a character tenor and you have a low voice, you can sing Alcindoro, and it is so much fun. The stuttering old man, right? But so I went and sang that, and while I was there, I met an old couple. An old German couple who was there just vacationing in Lucca. The wife was doing Italian lessons, actually at the same place that I was taking Italian lessons. And they were sitting in this courtyard when we were rehearsing, and they came up to me afterwards and we started talking. Turns out being the friendship of a lifetime, and one of the more meaningful and important friendships I ever developed. Again, if someone wants to talk to you and they're strangers or anything, it's important that you also, I think, in the performing arts, that you're able to stick out your hand, talk to people, and talk with interest, not just because there are lots of people who are paying tickets. They're buying tickets to go watch you. And if they have the impulse to come up and talk to you, I think you can spare a couple of interested moments to talk to them back. And
It's
I
part
mean,
of the business. It really is part of the business. These are the folks that are paying to go see, and they're coming to see you because they love opera, not because they want to show off their furs or be part of a social circle. But
right?
mostly in Europe, they're actually going there because they're interested. Yes.
100%, 100%. And these people, they were on their day off in Lucca, were watching a rehearsal of La Boheme by a bunch of students. Good for them. It was awesome. Anyway, we ended up eating pizza and everything. Stayed in touch. The next summer, I ended up going to the Franco-American Vocal Academy with Bill Lewis and his wife Frédéric Haddad, and that is when I ended up singing with them again. And I ended up singing with them, and it was Bill Lewis who was the first one. And it's because of his international career and singing a lot in Germany and everything. He was one of the first ones to say, Michael, you, I think, should be going in this direction. And he's the one who said, do you know Frisch zum Kampfe, which is the national anthem of Spieltenors, right? And if you're going to say, like, if you're going to audition, you better have that. If not, then kind of forget about it, I guess. But he had me sing that. I sang it for him, and he's like, "Hey, look, I think you can make a career with this. I'm an agent also. Would you like for me to represent you?" I said, "Yeah, hell yeah." I didn't have an agent yet. I don't know what I'm doing and getting jobs and everything. So signed a contract. As soon as I signed the contract, he said, "Okay, listen, I know somebody who's working at the Staatstheater in Oldenburg. I'd like for you to go sing for him," which is what I ended up doing.
So tell us then about your introduction to the German system. Bill Lewis signed you up and sent you to Oldenburg. You obviously got the job. Tell us about the
Well,
audition. Tell us about the
so
audition. What happened?
it was super. It was a matter of luck. Like, there were so many lucky things, but also things that, who was it that said luck is isn't it the meeting of preparation and accident or something? Like, you're not really lucky because you have to be prepared for the moment when it comes, right? So when I was in France and I signed with Bill Lewis, I wrote the German couple that I had met the summer before, and they said, "That's great. Oldenburg's a beautiful little town. Come to us, and we'll take you up for your audition and everything like that."
Oh my
So,
God, that's nice.
so they were kind of my patrons and coming over. Now, that's not like they were lavishing me and stuff, but they did everything that I needed. They brought me to their little town outside of Hagen, and then I went over there. We listened to old recordings. I mean, I was nerding out hard with these guys because he was fantastic. He was also I don't know, most American singers don't know the name Rudolf Schock.
Schock was great.
Amazing old tenor, right? And this guy was like a connoisseur of Rudolf Schock. And we did that, and he also had me sing for him, which at first I was like, maybe you're overstepping your bounds. But the thing is, he had a very good ear. He was not a musician, but he knew what to listen for, and he was right in a lot of his analysis. So I kind of was like, to heck with this. I can learn from somebody who's not a musician. Oftentimes, when I would ask my wife all the time. She's not a musician at all, but I would ask her before my colleagues or the other people, like, what do you think of this? Because from the mouth of babes, as they would say, right?
Yep.
From the innocent ears, not the corrupted. Like, everybody has their own opinion on music, but these are people who are hearing it for the first time and who would like sit in the audience. Anyway, what he did also was he looked on the website of Oldenburg and saw what they were doing that year.
Right.
And he said, they're doing Pirates of Penzance this year. And I said, oh, there's a great aria from that. There's a really beautiful aria in Pirates of Penzance. So I said, why not? I kind of remember it from ear. Why not start singing it and sing it for the guy, right? Because there was no cast up on the website. Now, I didn't know that they were just kind of lazy and didn't have the cast up yet. But I went and I sang for this guy, Wilfried, the guy's name, who helped me get to Germany. He drove me up there, and it was an American who was there by the name of Jason Weaver, who I'm forever indebted to. He said, I went and sang for Jason Weaver with Wilfried, and I said, well, I saw you guys are doing Pirates of Penzance, and I thought I'd prepare this for you. So I sang it. I gave it my best. And afterwards, I find out that Jason was the conductor. He was going to be the conductor for the piece. So it was just an accident that he ended up being the conductor for the piece. And, we sat down and talked afterwards. And he said, I said, listen, I would anything that's available in the theater. I mean, I'll be part of the chorus if you want.
Good for you.
And he said, yeah. But what he said was, oh no, you shouldn't do that. And I said, oh, does he not think I'm good? He's like, no, you don't understand. People in Germany pigeonhole pretty hard, right? That it's hard to make the leap over from chorus to solo, which if people are listening that listen to your older ones, Emily Larini is like one of the, it was so awesome that she made that leap. Because it's a hard thing to do. And what he said was, he's like, I want you, because in Pirates of Penzance, it is a blonde-haired, how do you say, innocent kid. And that was when I was 25. I still kind of look like I'm just now going through puberty. And back then, I really looked young. And so it was just exactly the right role for me to go and do something. And it was British humor, and I also think that Gilbert and Sullivan is wildly underperformed. It's basically bel canto light. If you treat it like bel canto, it's just beautiful to sing. So he said, you need to sing for the administration, for the heads of the theater.
Where, by the way, did you sing for? Did you sing on stage for him? Did you sing in a room?
No, it was just in a room.
It was just in a room. Okay, you just went up on a personal, hearing, as it were.
Right. In German, the informatives Vorsingen, the informative audition.
Right.
So I said, okay, what should I do? And he's like, well, you should stay here in Germany. And I said, but I can't. I have an apartment, a cat, everything there. He's like, okay, but listen, if you go back, don't get tempted to stay. I think you should come back and sing for them. So I said, okay. And I went back and I sold all of my things. I broke up with my girlfriend. I gave my cat away. I did everything. And then I got on a plane again with 2 suitcases. And I said, okay, I'm going to move to Germany. So I stayed with a friend in Düsseldorf. 5 days later, I had my audition. And I thought I blew it just because I guess my expectations were so high. And I went and I sang, and after I was done, I'm like, oh, shit, I blew it. So I went back to the...
you sing?
I sang Frisch zum Kampfe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first I sang the Pirates of Penzance aria.
Right.
And then I sang Frisch zum Kampfe. And then I thought... Wait, say... that's right.
Right.
With the B natural, the only one that Mozart ever wrote.
Right.
For a tenor. But so then afterwards, I was all depressed and everything, and I started walking back up to the youth hostel, and he called me. He's like, okay, I'll meet you there. And they offered me a fest engagement that night. It's maybe one of the best moments of my life, because they just offered it right there. And I thought that wasn't possible. I thought they were just looking for the one role.
Right.
And it was my plan. If I can get this one role, then I can build auditions around that, and maybe I can build a season for myself all around. But then I was able to just relax, and I flew back home. I had my last Thanksgiving and Christmas with my family before I went over to Germany and started that. And the rest, as they say, is history.
So so you're, in a certain sense, your lesson from that as a singer, we also want to sort of, ideas and do's and don'ts for singers. One is, of course, be prepared, and the other one is have luck. That's everybody says that. Bryn Terfel said it to me, and lots of people have said it. But yes, you have to be prepared to take advantage of it.
Absolutely.
What are your do's and don'ts from that experience?
Yeah. Um, the do's are, don't get so. Listen, I actually I liked being a singer, but I never really fit in very well with like a singer vibe, like this. Oh my, like this sort of like, well, I have to craft myself and what, I don't know. I never like, I fit like a square peg in a square hole to the fest system, because I was like, yeah, I'll do that. Give it to me. I got it. Let's just go. Let's do it.
There
And
you
it
go.
actually served me so well, because these theaters, they will engage an ensemble of singers, and they will cast how they can in that, which means they need you to be flexible. I saw singers come and go because they just didn't have any imagination with their voice. Now, it is true that those theaters have to those theaters, because they have to work with their ensemble, will sometimes try to stretch you too far, which you have to be able to say no. If anybody's listening and they know Tibby Plyla, then she always said, Michael, the first thing you should learn, because I was in contact with her also, she said, you need to learn the words Nein Danke, which it's true. You need to be able to say Nein Danke, but also be able to be courageous and push yourself, right? Because you never know what the next good role for you is going to be. She also said, Mike, we're not changing my mind, we're rearranging our mental furniture, right? Which is one of my favorite things. I've said it to every student I've ever had, rearranging your mental furniture. Anyway, I love you, Tibby. If you're watching, you're the best.
Say it again.
We're not changing our minds, we're rearranging our mental furniture.
I like that.
Which is
That's
good,
great.
because it's like, that is actually what happens when you have a new thought. It's like, well, okay, now the thought is here instead of there. And people think, people have sometimes a stigma against change, right? Which is perhaps an unhealthy thing, or can be wildly unhealthy for you if you wish to grow, because you only grow through
It's one
changing
of the great
only.
things about the German system is that you grow. You have the
That's right.
chance to grow and change.
And if you
If you
get with a
stay if
good
you stay the same. Go ahead.
if you get with a good administration, like the intendant or the Operndirektor, or whatever, they will see a path for you, right? And they'll try to pick pieces that will be good for you, which is awesome. Now, I also had the other advantage of, I told you, I'm not like, it was never a big deal. Like, I I didn't care, and this sounds weird, but I didn't care about my career. It didn't matter to me. What I wanted to do was, I wanted to sing. And I never was somebody who's like, I've got to go do this one, or I've got to go do this one, which, if you want to be a fest singer and go home to your bed every night and sing something interesting and go home to your bed, it is such a godsend, because you can grow, you can do something artistic, and you don't have to catch the next train. It's
Right.
awesome. I
Right.
hated, I mean, I did guestings and everything like that. I did jump ins, because, that's bread and butter. You have to do that stuff to grow also, like, personally. But I much preferred the nights where I could go to the cantina afterwards, drink beer with my colleagues, and then, stumble home in a drunken stupor and go to rehearsal the next day.
Yeah.
That was my way of doing things.
It's a
And when
nice
I
thing.
and when I started to have a family, then it was essential for me.
Right. So you got to, you get to go home in the afternoon and, have family time
That's
between,
right.
early morning rehearsal and and late afternoon or the show in the evening. But you get
Right.
some time with your kids. Especially if your wife is working, you can, do things that need doing. Right. Exactly.
That's right.
So yes, this is a system. Now, tell us more about tell us more about the Spieltenor, Charaktertenor, because it's so important for people, American singers, to know that there is really that there's a in every opera there they are, and they
In
get paid, they get hired, and they sing and they work.
and
Uh,
every house needs it in Germany, in the German system, which, by the way, I love telling this. Um, if you look on Opera Base, they have all kinds of statistics. Now, I'm not sure if I'm quoting the most up to date because I haven't looked in a little bit, but the last time I looked, America was number 2 on the list of countries that have the most opera performances. They had 1,700, I think it was. They were and that's a country of 330 million people. They were number 2 behind Germany with 80 million people, and they had 7,700 opera performances. It's
right.
not even close. You cannot spit in Germany without it hitting an opera house. It's ridiculous. Every tiny little place seems to have an opera house with actors, with an acting ensemble, with an opera ensemble, with its own orchestra, with all of this. And it's all funded by the state, which, whatever. That's just a different way of doing it. That it has Vorteile und Nachteile,
Advantages and
advantages
disadvantages.
and advantages and disadvantages to the system compared to America, for instance. But one of the advantages, they can have ensembles of singers, and every single one of them needs a Spieltenor. Now, the one mistake that I saw most people making was in the classification of their voice. Now, in my undergraduate, even my teacher, David Adams, who awesome voice teacher, great, like one of the most knowledgeable people ever, he still heard lyricism in my voice. He really enjoyed whenever I would sing some of the more lyrical roles, when that showed off my ability to act, but also had lyricism, like Albert Herring or something like that. I was really able to thrive in those roles because these teachers saw lyricism in my voice, but they didn't then necessarily make the connection to being a Spieltenor. In my opinion, there are so many singers who might get engaged as Spieltenor, or that's the plural for Spieltenor, by the way, if you guys are wondering what the hell I'm saying. Spieltenors, or Spieltenors, yes. I'd oftentimes talk to them, and they'd be like, "Oh yes, but they promised me that I'm going to sing. They promised me that I'm going to sing. What's I don't know, like Don Ottavio or something. Yes, they promised me that I'm going to sing
Ferrando or something, right?
exactly. And I thought to myself, I'm sure you can sing that, but don't you recognize that these roles? So you obviously can act. You can obviously do these roles well. Don't you recognize that these roles need lyricism also? And it leads to a lot of people saying, no, this is, I think that this is what I'm supposed to be. And in trying to get to be what they're supposed to be, they end up passing over what they are. And
Yeah,
it doesn't allow them to really find this, I don't know, artistic outlet in the way that it's a shame that they never do.
They could be a 6 or a 7 unemployed, lyric tenor, or a 9 or an 8 or a 9 or a 10, spiel tenor, because they have the
Exactly.
voice and they have they like to do it. They actually have fun, as you did.
100%. I mean, if they could have been world class as a Spieltenor, but they didn't. They had it in their heads, and that's their right. But I always found it a little bit of a shame, because as being a character tenor or a Spieltenor, you need range. You need to be able to be lyrical and then be able to get gravel in your voice and do all sorts of stuff. But actually, it's not that you need that as a Spieltenor, you need that as a singer. Why would anybody ever block out of their voice a possibility for their voice? Don't we want to have the whole range? I never really understood it. And honest to God, if you want to hear the cranky old singer in me, like, because I'll be 40 this year. I feel like now I've earned the right to be cranky old singer somehow. 40, I know it's not old, but it feels a little old to me now. And I think to myself, I hear a lot of really boring voices nowadays. People who aren't willing to be interesting with their voice. And it's a shame because if you listen to old recordings, it's like you could immediately tell all the time who each tenor was or who this person was, because their voice was unique sounding.
Right.
And there are so many singers nowadays where it's like, right out of the sausage factory, you sound exactly the same, and it sounds like somebody overcoached you to where there's no soul in your voice anymore, which is also a strong opinion I have, where it's like you hear the singer do it that way, and then they're like, well, let's not do it that way. And it's like, well, can't you let the singer do it that way?
Right. Good point.
I'll tell you, the first Barber of Seville I did, which, by the way, they are also more willing to cast Barber of Seville with more of a, like, again, I was a Spieltenor, but I could sing lyrically, so I sang Barber of Seville, and I was able to be goofy with it, right? Now, my coloratura sucked, but I wouldn't cast myself as it, but whatever. It was fun to do. It was underwater, and Bartolo was a octopus.
Oh my
Germany's crazy. You're not going to have frilly, like, if you go to Germany, the possibility of you having frilly lace things, if you're singing Tosca, is not good. I mean, Frank Lepardo was part of that famous, he told me about this because when in Cincinnati, we used to do the opera chorus. He was there for Rigoletto, and he told me, and he was cool, he's from New York. He's like, the last time I did this, I was in Germany, and I was in a friggin' gorilla costume or something. I'm like, what the hell? And I didn't know they did that in Germany. But you're talking, for lack of a better term, Eurotrash theater often.
Absolutely.
And now remind me of that when we get to the point when I decided to stop singing, because that has something to do with it, right?
Okay.
But
what kind of roles? What other crazy things did you do on stage in I guess everywhere, Oldenburg?
They wanted me to be naked in one of them, which I not that I had anything against it. I did a test for it, right? Because again, I have the shame bone in me doesn't exist. I am willing to embarrass myself, which I would have. But they wanted me. They did a stage version of Carmina Burana, and they wanted me to fly down from the rafters singing the Swan with my arms out like this, with big wings, naked, and in white paint from head to toe. Now I'm like,
That's pretty good.
So it's a wildly uncomfortable thing to sing anyway. I don't know anybody that likes singing it. Most of the people sound like roasting swans. Right, exactly. It's ridiculous. And so I went, and I'm like, show me the harness. So I went and put this, I said, let me go in this room. I'll be naked. I'll put the harness on. And I didn't have kids yet. And I said, well, if I do this, I'm not going to have kids. So they ended up putting me like in a bodysuit, a white bodysuit, and painting me white. And I did. I sang it coming down, slowly being lowered down out of the rafters, singing all those C's and D's, right? I mean, that was kind of wild. But, that's Germany for you. Again, if you don't want to take risks, or if you want to be one of those singers who they always bothered the shit out of me, was if you want to be one of those, I don't want to do that. Oh, it's a little uncomfortable. Oh, I can't really support. Bullshit. You can support. Just do it. Just try, I mean, I encountered those colleagues all the time, and they were always uncomfortable to work with, because it's like, you need to you need to put your ego aside for a second and do the damn job, because sometimes you're right. Sometimes it's like they're asking too much, which they do ask a lot in Germany. Which these teeth here, these are fake, because they asked me to do. The person asked me to. When I went out on stage, I had to hold all of these fake guns, like 15 fake rifles, but they were made of wood and metal. They were still really they were
Heavy.
still really heavy. So I was
Yeah.
holding them, and I was trying to sing, which was really comfortable. I kept there. I was like, can we maybe take some away? I was complaining a bit because it was cutting up my arms, and then one finally fell down and knocked out my 2 front teeth. Right,
Oh my God.
which the director didn't seem to give a crap about. She was irritated that I had to go to the dentist, and I'm like, okay, we are like, I've reached my limit at that point, right? So anyway, you're asked to do a lot of things all the time. And now you asked, Heather, about the physical constraints. I canceled maybe 3 times in all of my years, and I did hundreds and hundreds of performances. I mean, it got really intense once. And my favorite time, the first time I ever canceled them, I really didn't want to cancel, was I, in the month of December, had 26 performances.
Oh Jesus.
And that was with, I think, 4 or 5 different operas while rehearsing another one during the day. So we were rehearsing during the day, and I had in the evening, basically every night, Salome and this and that, and just every night it was something. Now, I went all the way up until in between Christmas and New Year's, and at the end, I was on stage with a not a napkin, a tissue, coughing into my tissue, and then finally I just said, I can't. I'm pretty damn tired. So they will use you. They will ausnutzen means to take
Use you up.
advantage.
I mean, and it is worse for Spieltenor, character tenor, because
That's right.
there's always some parts in almost every opera for one, and if they can save money, they will.
And
And
because the vocal strain is not, I mean, it sometimes often the role is smaller, so the vocal strain is not as great. So you can do that every night. It's just not advisable because your body still needs some rest. That's every
yes,
night. That's every night until 11 or 11:30
and
that
your
you're out.
adrenaline goes and everything else. I mean, it's just you're high,
100%.
and it every night it's a strain.
So
That's
the trick is then finding a balance. How do you be a good colleague? How do you be a good employee of the theater, and give your all, but also not be taken advantage of? And I have to say, there's a large part of it that is, you've got to know yourself. You've got to know your own voice, right? Because I don't know, I have always had a go get it American attitude of, I can do it. Just back up. Let me work, sort of thing. And there's some pride in not having canceled for so long. But if you do feel, first off, nobody minds if you mark. You've got to be able to learn how to mark properly, because you're doing a lot of rehearsals, and the rehearsal process in Germany is a lot longer than the one in America. So you have 6 weeks that you're doing this, and you're singing. If you want to sing all the time, that's your prerogative, but I would
Well,
not.
my impression is, my experience is that they don't even like it when you sing out all the time, because it hurts their ears, and they're not interested in that.
That's right. And the thing is, like, so there's also, I said you have to find balance with how far you can go and when you pull back. That is the one thing. It's also important for you before you go and sing a role, though, because if you mark too much, it's not in your body anymore. If you're marking all the time whenever you are on stage doing the movements, then you've never done it before. You've never really done it before. So it's important. I made that mistake once. Der Kaiser von Atlantis, right? He has this one in the beginning, and it was before the summer break. We rehearsed it. I was singing it, sounded awesome. We came back and we had a short rehearsal period, and I marked through it all and thought, it'll be fine in the end. And it wasn't. I was like, oh my God, I got to get this boat back on course. So I had to learn that balance of when to give, when to take back. That's something you just learn as a professional, and you just have to do it to learn it. If you ever need to talk to somebody, if you have a good opera director, that's the person to talk to. Well, that's one of them. The Studienleiter, which, if you guys aren't familiar with haven't heard the term yet, the Studienleiter is the person who is in charge of making sure the singers are prepared properly. Speaking to him about it, now I know what an integral role, now that I've been on the other side of the stage also, now I know what an integral role the Studienleiter has and what close contact he has with casting directors and opera directors. He's a very, very good contact point in that. So you can always talk to him.
What happened when you left Oldenburg, and where'd you go? And what we really want to know is how you got into the administration. It's total new world for me, so I'm very curious.
Well, after Oldenburg, the intendant in Oldenburg went to the Staatstheater in Mainz, and he took me with him, which was very good. And that was good. We had a good relationship, even though at one point I had gotten a contract offer at a significantly bigger opera house, and then I thought the practice was that if a bigger opera house gives you a contract, that they would let you out, but they didn't let me out, which was a bit of contention between us. So I lost that opportunity, but he gave me the job in Mainz, which was okay, cool. That's fine. I spent a year in Mainz, but then we had a significant argument, which led me, and now I won't get into details, but that led me to be like, time for a change. I did then an audition. I told my agent, I'm like, find me, Theresa Renick is her name in Germany. Awesome. Yeah. She's one of my favorites. She gave me this little guy when I retired because she knew how Mima was my dream role and everything. It's the one regret I have.
You never did Mima.
I have a piece of iron and something to hit it with every time just to be ready. I picked it out, like I would go around and find the right pitch and everything. But she found me the next job in Darmstadt, which that ended up being the place I was at for the longest time. Which Darmstadt was awesome because Darmstadt's the third biggest stage in Germany. It's enormous. Actually, it's like the stage itself is freaking huge. And for a small guy like me, I look like a Lego figure on that stage sometime. But I don't need to. Yeah, I don't need to look particularly big if they don't need me to. Anyway, I went there and had a great relationship with the administration. I'm happy to say I was never fired from a job. And when I decided to leave,
so you decided to, just as a singer, you decided to leave.
Yes. I decided I think I'm done. And there were a couple reasons for it. One was now my kids were getting older. My wife was from Oldenburg, which is like a 5-hour drive or something, 5.5-hour drive.
Up to Darmstadt. Yeah.
During the holidays, they would want to go to Oldenburg to Oma and Opa, Grandma and Grandpa.
Right.
And I wasn't able to go oftentimes.
No.
Because, you have free in the summer, but not when you want free.
Holidays are always a busy time for singers, actually.
Exactly. And the older I got, the more precious that time became to me. Being away every night from my kids, I got to, I got to see them maybe for an hour or two from when they got home from the kita or the daycare, and then when I had to go back. Those were two big things for me. The other thing is, yes, I'm happy that I was able to have a steady paycheck, but the pay in Fest systems is not great.
Right.
Like it's okay. But let me give you my first paycheck in Oldenburg was $1,650 a month. That's before taxes. That is an embarrassing, like nowadays that's an embarrassingly small amount. That's in Europe. That was at the Staatstheater Oldenburg, but that was the industry minimum at the time. That is the lowest somebody could be paid, right? Now it's up. They just They've recently negotiated. Now it's up to 2,550 and
Whoa.
will be to 2,700 soon. So that was part of it. So the money, the free time, the not seeing my kids during the day. There was one other important part, which when I decided to go, I communicated all of this with my intendant and my opera director openly and freely, because honest to God, I don't really feel the need to mince my words most of the time. And anybody who's listened to Sex, Drugs, and Opera knows exactly that, which, by the way, available on all podcasting platforms. No, I had a meeting with them, and like I said, I think I did a good job with my in my position. They didn't want to let me go, and they were very generous and offered, and they said, well, okay, what amount of money are you looking for right now? And I said, it's not about that. And I explained those things to them. But there's also something, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Pareto principle or the Pareto distribution. Or have you ever heard of the 80-20 rule?
No, what is that now?
So the 80-20 rule is something that's fascinating. It's something that exists all throughout nature, right? And it's this relation between 80% of something and 20% of something. Like, for instance, if you have a field of peas, 80% or 20% of the plants will generally produce 80% of the peas. That's the Pareto who came up with it. That was his first. That was the example he used first, and he found it then throughout all different things in life, right? And like generally in your house, 20% of the carpeting gets 80% of the wear. It's this weird, spooky thing that happens all throughout nature. And it just so happens that 80% of the productions I did in Germany sucked. And they were so like 20% of the things that I did, I felt I was really like getting artistic fulfillment from. And that started to weigh on me. That started to really, really get me down, because look, I'm missing the time with my kids. I'm missing the time with my wife. I'm not being paid very much. And now I don't even feel artistically satisfied. Darmstadt at one point, though, they asked me to do a recital, which I actually have it here. It's on my desk. It was called Words of Reason, Songs of Unbelief, which they did. They asked me to do this recital, and I said, okay, I'll do it. But will you guys give me money to have pieces commissioned, right? And they said, yes, we can do that. And they spent to have half of the thing was completely newly composed. I was able to do everything myself, to have set up the stage myself. They gave me completely free artistic reign, which I'm terribly thankful for. But what it also did to me was say, oh, I don't need the artifice of a theater to feel artistically satisfied. That's interesting to me, because that means I can give whatever recital I want whenever I want. I can find my own donors. I can do that. And I should. If I feel the need to be artistic, then I should go do that. But I don't have to eat a crap sandwich for it all the time. So what I did was I said, okay, I explained that to them. And I said, thank you very much, but I think I'm going to go try marketing. And by that point, I had already started putting out my materials and say, well, I want to go work here. And I did interviews, which I didn't really, outside of the marketing that I did for Sex, Drugs, and Opera, which was actually a lot. There was a lot of work involved with that. I didn't really have much of a marketing background, but I noticed something, that if you're a good auditioner, interviews are basically the same damn thing, and you just have to sell yourself. So I was really good at interviews also. Now, the theater did exactly the opposite of what I expected them to. I thought they were going to say, all right, Herr Pegher, but it was nice working with you, but we'll find somebody in like 2 minutes for your spot. It's like no hair off our backs, right? That's not what they did at all. The intendant said, no, listen, if you want to go do marketing, then why don't you just stay here with us? I'll make a spot for you in the marketing department, and then you can get something on your CV, which I was like, that's awesome. Yeah, let's do that. So we went back and forth for a while. It took a while because we had the whole season. we went back and forth for a while, and I said, well, let's get a contract done. And the contract didn't happen for a long time, which gave me time to think. And when we talked about what they wanted me to do, it then ended up being very similar to what I had already done in Sex, Drugs, and Opera. And I thought to myself, if I want to make a move, or in German they call it Quereinsteiger, which is like somebody, Einsteigen means to get into it, and Quer means like diagonal, right?
Sideways.
Like, so you're getting into something sideways, right? If I wanted to be a Quereinsteiger and get into marketing somewhere, the next step is really important that I learn as much as I can, that I do something new. And when I realized, oh, they wanted me to do generally what I was doing at Sex, Drugs, and Opera, I realized that I wasn't going to be learning as much as I needed to. And I then told them, listen, I thought about it again, and I don't think I should do it. And I told the opera director, and then that night at like, it was at 10:30 or 11, the intendant called me, right? And he's like, Mike, listen, is it because the contract took so long? And I said, no, it's not that. It's not that. And he says, have you really made up your mind? And I said, yes, but it sounds like you have something to say. So why don't we meet? The next day, the intendant of this theater, he didn't need to do any of this. His name is Carsten Wiegand. I owe so much to that man because he just didn't let it go. He wanted to know what he could do. So we sat down, we talked. I remember we were at a cafe. It was in the sun. It was awesome. He eventually, the opera director before said, well, you know, if you want to earn more money, then really the way is to go into administration and eventually try to become an intendant. And I don't know, maybe you would be a referent or something. I told him that she said that, and he said, well, what do you think about that? And I said, what? He's like, would you want to go on that path? And I thought, you know, every singer thinks that they always think I could run an opera house, but you know, everybody is arrogant enough to think that, but I never really given it serious thought. Long story short, he offered me that position to be his referent, and I took it, and it was an awesome thing. What
did you learn as a singer, you know, be on the other side, and what can you tell singers about what folks who are, you know, in the administration are looking for?
So what I learned is there is really, like, singers would often get really impatient with the administrations. And he'd be like, well, why don't they do it this way? Why don't they do it that way? And they don't know that that's all been discussed 1,000 times. And it's not just that, like, let's just take a hypothetical. It's not just the way that you wanted to do it was discussed, but also way A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, all of them were all done. It's a difficult job to run a theater. The theater that I was at in Darmstadt was 550 employees, right? It's a huge place. The scheduling is bananas. There's dance, there's orchestra, there is opera, there is acting, there are all the youth things that happen there, there are all the outside things that happen in the theater. I worked so much harder in the administration than I did as a singer. And I actually made it. It wasn't a mistake. I didn't make a mistake by this, but when I was there and doing it, we recognized, oh, okay, well, I was an opera singer, and there are a couple of pieces coming back in the next year, Wiederaufnahmen. And I said, well, you know, I'm here. I know those pieces. There's nothing that stops me from singing those pieces. And if there are small pieces also, then maybe I could sing those too. It led to a lot of 14-hour days, a lot of 14-hour days, right? Which that is not to be, I mean, I was there all the time. Even if it was, you know, even if it is a Wiederaufnahme, they, like, you still have to do rehearsals to get it back up on its feet. and
Right.
I had to go do those. So during the day, sometimes I would be at my desk working on something, work until the last second, run down to the rehearsal stage, go rehearse, run right back up, and just keep on going. Um, and Carsten Wiegand, he's also a regisseur. So if people don't know what a referent is, it's basically like a personal assistant and like kind of like advisor. I also worked in an advisory fashion, like kind of like an artistic advisory fashion. So it was a great position to have. But he would also do pieces. So sometimes he would go down to rehearsal and I would go with him because I was in the piece that he was doing. So, I mean, he's my boss. If he's not missing me right now, then why not just go be part of the piece? So I worked my face off, and I was able to really gain an appreciation for how much goes on at those theaters. It's
Right.
really, really crazy. It's so
How
much.
how long did you do that?
I did that. Well, I did that only for the 1 year, and then I decided I'm going to move back to America.
Well, now tell us real quick, why did you move back to America, and what did you decide to do, and what's your story here?
I wanted to. I mean, honest to God, it's as simple as that. My kids are dual citizens. They're American and German citizens. They're both 9 and 7 right now, and it happened so quickly. I was in America for my brother's wedding, and that was in May. I wrote my wife on May 14th. I sent her a picture of the kids playing with the cousins. I said, let's move to America, right? She responded with, yeah, let's do that. Now, since I moved away from Pittsburgh to go to Cincinnati, I had told myself, I may never live in America, in Pittsburgh again. I may never live in America again. I have no idea where I'm going to be. So I kind of gave up hope that I would live back home again. Um, and then when she said this, my heart sort of stopped. I didn't say anything. I got back on the 20th of May, so I sent her that on the 14th, got back on the 20th of May, we discussed it, and I quit my job on the 24th of May. So in 10 days, I didn't quit my job. He was like, oh my gosh, that's fine. What he said was awesome. He's like, yeah, it's a shame you're going, but why should that stand in the way of a big life decision? So completely understanding. It was awesome, awesome. And we really did it because we wanted to live in America as a family. We had done it for a while, and to wait much longer would make it hard on the kids
Yeah, yeah.
to be part of it.
So what are you
Um,
doing now?
well, I'm doing what I can. So my wife is still dealing. I mean, the visa process. Even if you're the mother of two red-blooded Americans and you're married to Michael Pegher, the famous American. No, I'm just saying, if you're married to an American and you're mother of two Americans, it's still over a year probably that it's going to take
Jeez.
for her to get a visa. So I moved with the kids, and we had saved so that we could do this. And I'm here with the kids, and I'm building a life for us. And my wife is still working in Germany. And my main goal has been to be the best father I can be. And it's been awesome. I mean, I've worked since out of high school. I've been doing stuff like this, and this is the one break I've had. Now, it's funny because when I was in high school, there's a theater that was renovated and opened up since I've been away, and I'm in talks with them about maybe being part of the administration there. So
Oh, cool.
it was really good that I had my time in the administration in Germany.
Right,
Plus, I sing sometimes in the shower.
right. Absolutely, always a good place. Right, right. Cool. What is there something you can just sum up, general information, general ideas for singers, both people who are going to sing, Tannhäuser or Tosca or whatever.
The worst thing you can be is a singer that is boring. The worst thing you can be is somebody that doesn't have anything to say artistically, right? Doing a great impression of your favorite recording is not saying anything artistically. It doesn't do anything. Why would you even get into this if you don't really have something to say? Make a friend with a composer, find what you want to say, make a song for yourself, sing that. I mean, honest to God, I love Schubert, but how many times are we going to sing it? How many times is that going to happen before we find another Schubert, something that you really care about? Honest to God, becoming an artist is a long, becoming a singer is a long process, but becoming an artist is a never-ending one. You have to keep just keep working on it, right? Just keep trying to say something unique, because if you don't, I'd rather not listen. Honest to God, I'd rather not listen to you if you don't. And I mean, in your lesson, try to say something. In your audition, so I sat in on a lot of auditions, and it's the one thing I saw. There were people who just thought they had their way of doing it. And then there were people who were giving a performance, right? And Michael Keaton, actually, I saw Michael Keaton say this once. He said, I wasn't being very successful in auditions until I changed my thinking was, well, no, my job, you think that you're going to get the job, but no, the audition is the job today. You go and you do your job. You pick up your lunch pail. He's from Pittsburgh, by the way, like sort of blue collar mentality. You pick up your lunch pail, you go to work, you do your job, you go home, right? And an audition is like that. And if you're going to audition and you're not going to say something, why the hell would somebody ever engage you? I wouldn't. And I did help engage people, and I never engaged somebody who didn't have something to say. So say something.
There you go. All right. It was a pleasure. Thank you. It was
My pleasure.
learning experience, and here, and also fun to hear another colleague, who really was there and really
Yeah.
knows both the good side, the bad side, and the glorious side. As my first voice teacher used to say, it's a glorious art and a horrible profession, but Germany makes it an interesting profession.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.